A St. Louis therapist shares the art of relating. That's our topic next on City Corner. I'm Steve Potter, and welcome to City Corner. Christine Kniffen is a therapist and relationship coach. She's written this book, The Art of Relating, and she joins us today. Hi, Christine. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Steve. Welcome.
Are relationships art?
The art of relating is what I call it. I think there is an art to it. You have to understand how it is. There's a language for it. I do think it's an art to make it work.
Well, you've been doing this a long time. Let's talk just a little bit about your background. You're a clinical licensed social worker.
Licensed clinical social worker.
I knew I had that backwards.
You got it.
And a therapist and relationship coach. So just tell me how you got into this, line of work.
I'm a therapist by training, a licensed clinical social worker, LCSW. I got into private practice probably about 15 years ago, but I've always loved relationships. I've loved communicating. I've always seen patterns of where the communication breaks down. As I talk to the different couples that come in or the individuals, you really start to see the patterns of where people get hung up. They don't know how to handle the differences. They don't know how to validate each other's feelings. You see the patterns over again, and then the predictable ways that manifests itself. You know, people dig their heels in, they get into a right or wrong stance, power struggles. I've always enjoyed that. So I started probably about 10, 12 years ago, maybe writing for the Healthy Planet, a relationship column. So
Which is a magazine.
Which is a magazine here in St. Louis, all dedicated to the environment and healthful things and all things sort of related to people and self-improvement, definitely things like that. So I just love that aspect. I see people for all the usual things an individual counselor would work with somebody on, you know, depression, anxiety, grief, stress, those kinds of things. But relationships, helping either couples together or individuals is my favorite thing.
Well, you know, Christine, I conduct interviews all the time about things I don't know anything about.
Perfect.
And I had to laugh to myself thinking, boy, have I struck gold this time. I'm joking, but what I really mean to say is, aren't relationships, do individuals struggle with anything more than their personal relationships? Does anyone get it right?
I think a lot of people get it right, but I think we're all on a learning curve is what it is. It's probably a little better now, actually, that people are marrying later, because when you're 20, what do you know about what you need? You know you want somebody who's got a job, maybe doesn't drink too much. Other than that, you don't, all those nuances. I need emotional support. I need someone who encourages me. I want somebody who'll call me on my stuff to make me grow and make me be better as a person. You don't understand any of that. It's just love and attraction. We go about sort of mindlessly when we're 20. Oh, I like you. I'm attracted to you. Oh, you're wonderful. Oh, you make me feel good. You think I'm terrific? I mean, that's what we do, but we have to use the head a little more as we get older, because there's different skill set involved to be in love and versus have a great relationship, and one doesn't make the other.
Yeah, I'm always amazed by how many, I'm always amazed when I do meet people that say got together when they were 18 years old and are still married 40 years later.
You do have those, but I wouldn't call that the norm.
No, that's my point, right.
Yeah, a lot of that's too about compatibility. I've heard people talk a lot about, you know, relationships are a lot of work, but to me the work is when you're probably not as compatible as you need to be, and you might be trying to force it. I've had a lot of couples come in maybe after 30 years of marriage, the kids are now out, we have the empty nest syndrome, and suddenly you're like, oh, I'm left with you, and it's so apparent what's going on there, and what the problems are, that people are pretty unhappy, and they often have a lot of work they have to do.
A little bit later in the next segment, Christine, I want to talk about something that you've just started doing fairly recently, and that's counseling by way of Skype.
Yeah, that's something that's pretty new. I think it's kind of the way the trend is going. I'm doing coaching and counseling via Skype. People find it a lot, and we'll talk about that a little bit in the next segment, but people find that very convenient. That may be strange to people who maybe, I don't know, 50, 60 or over, but boy, if you're down in your 20s and 30s, a lot of people are already Skyping because you can Skype on your tablet, your cell phone. It's like the Jetsons. You're sitting there looking at me and I'm talking to you, just
Right.
like that.
Yeah, but that's intimate enough to talk about such intimate topics?
Yes, you would be surprised. What's really interesting is, so the Skype, I've got a virtual office now, right? So that's what I'm doing as opposed to a regular old standard, brick and mortar office. I'm doing a virtual office. And at first you wonder about that, but it's really interesting. The dynamics change a lot, whether years ago in an office, when I had been in a smaller one and people were closer, we almost got better conversation. And then I realized when the couch was further, it didn't get as deep. And you see all kinds of differences, and that's true with the Skype as well. But yes, I think people in some ways might feel a little safe behind their computer. Just as sometimes people, when they're doing online dating, feel safe to really let it all out when they're emailing back and forth to each other. I think people feel kind of comfortable doing that.
Well, your book is The Art of Relating, a primer for love, and I just want to read the first sentence from your acknowledgments,
Okay.
which have you comment on it. This book is dedicated to the School of Hard Knocks, where I learned much about the ways of love. So, do we have to get hurt to be happy?
Boy, that's tough. I don't think I'd phrase it like that.
Well, that's what I thought I read here.
That might be where you are, your perspective. I see what you're saying. I think it's just life. I think we have to learn from life. I mean, here's the biggest thing, too. A lot of people come in and they go, they get back into dating. Maybe one of these couples I talked about where they've been married for 30 years and it doesn't work out anymore and they're terrified of going back into the dating scene and everybody's white-knuckling because they've been hurt and they have such intrepidation. They don't put themselves out there, or it's trigger happy, and these gals will come into my office, and I'm like, well, how was that date? I got rid of him. Why? Well, blah, blah, blah. I go, well, I don't think that was enough of a reason. I think you're a little trigger happy. So people are trying to avoid getting hurt. And the thing to remember is you really can't avoid getting hurt. You can avoid getting devastated. Because most of the time that devastation is about you stayed in something far longer than you knew you should have. And that emotion that you're feeling is really because you have just crumbled the last great bastion of naivete, that love is enough. And that's a difficult life lesson. We stay in there because we think the love is there. And I say, so what if you're not getting a good relationship? Mm-hmm. So once we get over that crushing of that concept that love is enough, that last great bastion of naivete we have as adults, that love will conquer the problems. When we finally realize that that's not true, I don't think we're ever hurt that way again.
So you're referring to like false expectations, right? Do we grow up as kids believing that we're going to have this fairy tale kind of life? And how often does that happen? So we're set up to be disappointed, aren't we?
I couldn't agree more, and I've written plenty on that. Movies, romance novels, all those things. Boy, I grew up in the black, and I'm 50. Boy meets girl, black and white. They always ended up happy. I'd sit in my room smiling, I'd being all happy. And then you get out in the real world and date, you're like, oh, it didn't really turn out. Oh, love didn't make it all work out. Oh, love isn't enough. You just, you got to get out there and you have to get realistic expectations. And really, realistic expectations are, what do I need to be happy in a relationship versus just being in love and attracted? What do I need to be happy in a relationship? And do you seem to be someone who can give that to me? Because let me tell you what, when you really want a good, healthy relationship and someone seems to have a good degree of potential, it's a pretty exciting thing.
So am I hearing you right? When most of us meet someone, what are we attracted to first? I guess superficial things. Looks,
yes.
Maybe a nice personality, which is great.
Yes.
But you're saying those things don't necessarily last.
I'm saying those aren't enough to hold, that's not enough glue to hold it together. The real big thing is, can I talk to you? In other words, if I'm upset about something that transpired, can I say to you, when this happened, this really hurt my feelings or upset me when this happened, and this is why. Do you get defensive? Do you refuse to listen to it? Do you argue back? I mean, a great indicator of a potential for a good relationship is how well can I talk to you and be vulnerable? Because that's being vulnerable. If I say, we went to that party and you were gone for 45 minutes, you knew I didn't know anybody there. I felt really stupid and kind of like we weren't even a couple. That's being vulnerable. you know, and I could say, next time, pop around a couple times and give me a little kiss on the cheek throughout the night. That would make me feel better. Well, that's being vulnerable, which is risky because you could say, well, are you a baby? Do I need to babysit you all day? You know what I mean? But you need somebody who doesn't shoot down your vulnerability, who encourages it, because when each person is emotionally vulnerable and being real honest about their feelings or what hurt them, that's the glue that grows the relationship together. Without that vulnerability, you're not going to have a relationship that lasts.
Yeah. You know, you look around, if you're a single person, I think you look around, you see people together, people that are couples that have been together for a while, and it seems like everyone's got this nice relationship but you.
Well, I'd have to say it seems like that. Haven't you ever known the couple that broke up and you're like, what? I thought you two were perfect. You see that all the time. We don't know what's going on in people's lives. And remember, those people at some point didn't have a relationship and said to themselves, everybody's got a relationship but me. It's all going on at the same time. It's not actually true. It's just how you feel.
You know, we were talking with the crew here before we started filming, and somebody asked you about a relationship being a business, and that was a really good question. You had a good answer.
Well, I think it is like a business in that things have to be negotiated. The differences have to be negotiated. If you are late to everything, and I am ridiculously early to everything, when you're on two opposite ends of the spectrum, we'll use the easy ones, late early, clean sloppy, you know, for illustration. When you are like at the opposite end of the seesaws on those, you're always got the potential for the heads butting when you have people opposite like that. You have to negotiate it. Fine then. You pick the movie. I don't care if we're late. If you don't care if you see the movie, fine. But how about when I pick the movie, we go a little earlier? You know what I mean? People have to negotiate the differences between themselves. So it is a lot like a business. You have to agree. You have to agree to take things on, too, in a way you would when at business. I mean, the reality is once you find a really good, steady relationship, that great, exciting new in the beginning that you get when you meet somebody, you're in essence saying, I'm not really going to have that again if I'm going to stay in the relationship. So, you know, there are things you have to decide upon and a commitment you have to make, just like you'd make to a business.
How many people do you think have relationship problems? Is it everybody?
Problems is a tough word. I think life happens to everybody and they have differences. Problems to the point that they're fighting, arguing and all that. I don't know. I certainly can't give you percentages on that. But I think everybody has differences they have to work out. There's always bumps in the road. There's no nirvana in relationships.
And would it be safe to say that most people don't go to a coach or a therapist like you when they have these problems? Most people don't.
I would say a lot don't. What I tend to find is when people used to come into my office and now when we do the Skyping, that there's probably 2, 3, 4 main issues they've perhaps fought over the entire duration of their relationship that they haven't gotten resolved. It could be anything. It could be, you know, it's a loyalty thing. You're always putting your family first. You're telling your mom, we'll go ahead and be over and all that, and you're never asking me first if it's okay to go on that day. All kinds of different things like that can happen in relationships.
We need to take a break, Christine, but when we come back, we're going to talk more about the art of relating and specifically about some things you have to say in your book. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name's CJ. A few years ago, my father became seriously ill. I did what I could do before he passed, but it took its toll. I lost my job, my house. I'm getting back on my feet, but I don't know when there'll be food on the table. How'd I do, CJ?
We could be twins.
Well, cousins, maybe.
Play a role in ending hunger. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger and find your local food bank.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When you throw away money on wasted electricity, you're throwing away everything you could have bought with it.
saving energy saves you money. Learn more at energysavers.gov.
G-Morning, sunshine. Wakey, wakey. Text me. Are your parents home later? We can hang. LUV, love you. JK. Holla back. Holla back. Holla back. Are you with your friends? That's lame. We're in a huge fight right now. XO. What'd you dream about? Something I did. Are you on your way to the mall? I'm lonely. Nude pics. Send me some. Text me.
I'm Steve Potter. Welcome back to City Corner, and we're talking with St. Louis relationship coach Christine Kniffen. She's written the book, The Art of Relating. She has her own practice here in St. Louis, and we're going to talk about something interesting she's doing with Skyping here in just a second. But Christine, if you would, your book is sort of divided into 3 sections. So how have you divided that up? What's the purpose of doing that?
I call this The Art of Relating, a primer for love. It's just to give, I'm thinking about all the ways people get hung up, the problems they have in relationships, the problems they have looking for a good relationship, and I tried to address many of those. And what I did was, in the beginning, that opening sentence you said about I learned things from the School of Hard Knocks. I don't think these are that many things people can teach in books. The School of Hard Knocks means I've gone through this personal struggle to find a great relationship, which I have now. And so at the beginning of each paragraph, whether I'm writing about differences or the vanishing self syndrome or stop choosing emotionally unavailable, I write a little tidbit about my personal struggle and what I learned.
So why don't you share the first thing you've written in your book about that?
And this is because I really want people to understand, and I think that's why they respond to me when I write, that I really understand how they're feeling, because I write it in a way they know that I've been there. I put, this is the chapter on stop choosing emotionally unavailable. I said, lying in the fetal position while sobbing to the depths of my soul, I could not understand why no one wanted to love me. Why was I always left? What was I doing wrong, and what was so wrong with me? This feeling was not so much in direct correlation to the relationship that had just ended, but rather the powerful cumulative effect of the same scenario and subsequent feelings felt at the ending of all my previous relationships. This is what I learned. Because what I did, which many people do, is if they're emotionally unavailable, it's never going to work out, no matter how long you want to hang on, because love is there. And therefore, they're going to end. And I would never leave, because that's how much I wanted love. Well, if you never leave, eventually someone's going to leave you. So every relationship I was left in. So there I am going, what's wrong with me? And see, I'm internalizing that. And that's what a lot of people do. The problem isn't me. Other people would have left a long time ago, and then they wouldn't have the why does everyone leave me, because they would have left. That kind of thing.
Do most people blame themselves, though, when a relationship doesn't work?
Yes, but I think that's, well, let's see. I think you're going to have 2 ends of the spectrum. I think you're going to have the person who doesn't take responsibility, who says it's always everyone else's fault.
Right.
But I think people also going to blame themselves, and I think really that's just for a pretty understandable reason. That's because, in essence, if it's your fault, you could then do something different and affect a different outcome. So it's no different than when parents fight or get divorced and then the kids somehow internalize it. It's something they did, because it's almost their way to control something that's upsetting to them.
Does geography have anything to do with relationships? I know this is a stretch, but here's what I mean by this. Maybe you don't know because you're here in St. Louis. I wonder if people have better relationships, this sounds crazy, in certain parts of the country. Like
Boy, that's interesting. I'll be honest with you. I've never
If you live
thought
on a
about that.
beach, don't you have a better relationship?
No, you take your head with you anywhere. You could be unhappy on the beach. Well, then how are you going to have a good relationship if you're not happy?
Do you see cycles like on an annual basis? Do people have more troubles in relationship or on Valentine's Day or the winter? Do you see any kind of pattern?
Well, sure, they have stuff on Valentine's Day issues, but that speaks to, and there's a good thing on my website about how to have a successful Valentine's Day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a TV show I did, and that's all about the expectations like you talked about earlier. But people have a harder time a lot of times in the seasons going into the fall, because a lot of people have times that are harder then, and maybe they get quiet or a little distant, and then the relationship's impacted, so sometimes those things come out during that time. Also, you get all kinds of weird things, like after something like 9/11, a lot of people get divorced. It's almost like, life is short. Am I happy? What is it all about? And so a lot of times you see dramatic shifts and things after big events like that, where people suddenly go, I only have one shot. Is this really what I want it to be? So you see things after.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
See, that almost surprises me too. I would think after something like 9/11, people might value their relationships more.
I think you would get that. Could easily get that subset. That's very logical. But I think also that they also note that you see that.
Ah, you said logical, Christine. What does that have to do with relationships? Logic.
Well, but here's the problem. This is the problem. As we get older and we're no longer 20, we realize we've got to throw the cerebral part of ourselves into the equation. Getting a relationship is about knowing who you are. It's about knowing what you need emotionally to be happy. And it's insisting upon that, and it's leaving that when that's not there. Don Ruiz, who wrote the 4 Agreements that I always love and a bunch of other things, he said something, it's quite profound in its simplicity. If you like cats, don't get a dog. That's pretty much what he had to say. In other words, it's our job and our responsibility to say no. But see, that all involves thinking. We're not 20. We can't just go, oh, there's that physical attraction. Oh, I like you. You like me. I'm all excited and it's terrific. I can't think. I don't want to go to work. I want to stay on the phone till 3 in the morning. But that's great, just if you just want to be like, I want to have a great time. But if you want a relationship, you have to get into the...
Well, all that excitement, that euphoria, that's all chemical, and that doesn't last,
That's
right?
all chemical, and that doesn't last. But let me tell you what, if you really, really want a good, successful relationship, and you're really trying to incorporate many of the things that I talked about, changing your patterns, trying to be more responsible and leaving more quickly when you can tell it's not right and being responsible to yourself, you will increase your odds of getting a good relationship, and that's really what you're looking for.
Okay, Christine, a good relationship and passion, to me, must be 2 different things. Can passion last forever? I know a good relationship can.
I think, well, you use the word passion. Let me do this a little differently. Let me say sexual attraction. Okay. How about that?
All right.
Sexual attraction runs a continuum, and I think all too often, especially with people who've come in to do the individual relationship coaching, we do that over Skype, and then they go get started on internet dating or somewhere where they have a venue to put these things into practice. What was that question? I lost you for a second.
If passion lasts forever.
What it is, but I think instead of passion, when I think in terms of sexual attraction, I think what people do is, if I don't have that immediate, really high sexual attraction, you're nice, you're a nice guy, but I just don't like you. I don't like you like that. I think people dismiss too many people. I think sexual attraction runs a continuum. If you really want a good, solid relationship, you meet a guy who's, if you're a woman, you meet a guy who's, nice guy, seems to have some of his stuff together. You go out on a date, you have a good time, you talk, you're on maybe date 2 or 3. Then he kisses you and you're like, oh, I had no idea it'd kind of be that good. It runs a continuum.
And don't you think you can be attracted to a person over time when you get to know their personality? You're attracted for other things, not just the way they appear to you at first.
No, the physical appearance, you could be with the best looking person in the world, but after a few years, you're not going to see he or she as the best looking person in the world. There's just that person in front of you.
Well, let's talk about the Skyping aspect of your counseling that's so fascinating. Number one, I've never Skyped at all, but that's basically talking to another person over your computer or whatever device you're using. And so you're using that in your practice. Why is that effective, do you think? And why do you do it?
I just think it's the new way to go. I like it. Let's be honest, offices are high priced and people are busy. The biggest thing, people are stressed out, they don't have enough time, they're running kids to a gazillion sports things, trying to make sure they get into colleges and different things like this. It's very convenient. Someone can be in their office, they can be at home, they could close their door so that their husband or wife doesn't hear them, even if they think they don't have enough privacy. And the computer's right there. It's like you're face to face. I mean, it's really as if you're in the office. And yet, as I said, people kind of feel a sense of comfort to open up perhaps in their own home or their own environment.
So do all of your clients Skype?
Some Skype, some do it with no video though. Some people just don't like the video, so we just Skype with the audio. You can do audio or video.
Let me just throw out a couple other things that you do and you can comment on it. Do you have a podcast?
I have a podcast. It's called The Art of Relating, and I interview authors about various books, and much of it has to do with things that we're dealing with, whether what's wrong with the healthcare system to dealing with someone who's got a serious illness, caregiving for older parents, you name it. Any kind of thing that we're dealing with as people and we need to be able to have a good talk and discussion about, that's what I do.
And you use a Facebook page?
I have a Facebook page. Of course, I have a personal one, but I have a business one. And the good thing about that is if you go on the website and go to the Facebook link and like that, you will get updates on upcoming seminars and different things I do, like surviving internet dating, finding your voice in a relationship, different things like that.
You use YouTube?
Yes, I'm working on you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's in its infancy, but I'm working on a new series called Quick Tips on Love. The last one was like, let's be friends, the person who wants to be friends right after they break up with you and how ridiculous that is. I'm going to be talking about various topics and things people deal with in relationships.
And you conduct seminars. You have some interesting ones coming up.
Yeah, the surviving internet dating is always a popular one. I just did that, and I'll be doing that again. People really like that.
Listen, here's a confession. No one believes it. When I have never liked use the internet to meet anyone. I feel like I'm the only one in the world that has not done that.
It is simply a venue to meet people. Again, the expectations have to be in check. It is a place for sorting, screening, and sifting
It seems
skills.
crazy to me, and it seems like it'd be more trouble than it's worth. Am I just being negative?
No, but here's one thing I caution people on when I do in my seminar. I say you have to have realistic expectations. You can't be someone who has trepidation about getting on there. Okay, then you push yourself, you finally do it, and then why didn't the first or second one work out? And then people want to give up. That's not how it works. I mean, when you're looking for a pair of jeans, do you find them on the first try? Not often. You know, you have to go out and you're practicing. People don't like practicing. Sometimes they're afraid of that because let's say you talk back and forth a little bit and you decide to meet. And then you meet and you're like, you know, I don't think so. Well, then you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Well, but this is the adult life skill. Listen, thanks. It's been great meeting you. I don't quite feel the love connection, but good luck with things. People need practice doing this. It needs to be okay to go, no, I don't think so.
Hey, listen, you and I have, we just have a minute left. You and I have something in common.
Yes.
We both had 103-year-old grandmothers.
I love that.
I think I learned some stuff about relationships from my grandmother. Did you?
Yeah, well, I tell you what I learned from my grandma. My grandma stood up for herself. And I was always a little, what they would call, I hate that word, codependent. Too codependent in the relationships because having the relationship last at the expense of just about everything was what my problem was. And Grandma didn't put up with anything. Grandma, said how it was, said how she felt, and, she was a good model for
All right,
that.
so the bottom line here, I guess the takeaway is good relationships are possible. They might take some work. Work on them.
Yes, and you don't need one, you want one.
Great. The book is The Art of Relating, A Primer for Love. Relationship coach, Christine Kniffen, has been our guest. She's written the book. We'll have some contact information. You can go to her website and check it out. And if you need help, get it. Because we're all for good relationships, right, Christine?
That's right.
Thanks so much for being my guest today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. That's it for this edition of City Corner. I'm Steve Potter. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.